Okay, let's unpack this. Today we're doing a deep dive into a really intense set of sources. They're centered around a book called Sex-ploitation, How Women Use Their Bodies to Extort Money from Men. Our mission here is really just to pull out the most important insights, the arguments from this material, give you a detailed look at its perspective. And just to be clear, we're not here to agree or disagree with these viewpoints. We're just laying out what's in the source for you to consider.
Yeah, and what's truly fascinating, I think, about this deep dive is how these sources present such a, highly controversial viewpoint on gender dynamics, on relationships. You've got the book itself, obviously, which is just packed with these provocative claims, and then even some public reviews that really highlight how heated the discussion around it got. So we'll try and bring these different parts together so you can really think critically about what it's saying and, understand its implications. It's the kind of material that always makes me wonder, how exactly does an author articulate such a viewpoint while trying to maintain some analytical distance?
That's a great question to frame this. So, okay, let's jump right into the book's central thesis. It apparently builds on some earlier work, and it immediately grabs your attention. It claims that women fundamentally act as, quote, dishonest prostitutes, basically using sex to manipulate men for financial gain.
Right. And if we connect this to the sort of bigger picture, the source argues this isn't, a new idea at all. It points straight back to Esther Villar's book from the 60s, maybe early 70s, The Manipulated Man, which proposed that women manipulate men with sex, conditioning them into subservience and slavery to fulfill female desires. Villar, she was an Argentinian-born physician and psychologist, I believe, and she famously described the typical American housewife, of her time anyway, as nothing more than a parasitic prostitute living off the bounty of her husband's hard labor.
Strong words, very strong. And sexploitation really seems to push that concept forward, right into the modern age. The author, Matthew Fitzgerald, asserts that a woman's body is her business for extortion, and that her core ambition is, quote, to live at a man's expense, to luxuriate in a life without work or responsibility. He even goes as far as stating that by age 12, most women have decided to become prostitutes, planning a future for themselves, which consists of choosing a man and letting him do all the work.
Oh.
That's quite a claim.
It is. And the book then draws this really sharp distinction. It contrasts what it calls the honest transactions of, say, street prostitutes with the average woman who, it alleges, trades sex, or more often the promise of sex, for gifts and entertainment and a lifestyle. It really hammers home this assertion that a woman's body is simply a tool to get what she wants from men, an impersonal device designed to extract maximum profit.
Wow. And to really, drive that point home, the book suggests women achieve status and income without any expenditure of effort. It gives the example of, quote, a brainless bimbo who drapes herself on the arm of a movie star is accorded greater respect than a female librarian or scientist. It's a pretty stark statement on perceived societal value. Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, I think, because the book takes this very sharp turn into a scathing critique of feminism. It starts by describing what it sees as this sort of optimistic new age in the late 60s, early 70s. During this time, women, supposedly freed by the pill and a, quote, reckless interpretation of the new fad of feminism, appear to desire pleasure over money, even, as the book puts it, demanding orgasms instead of cash.
But then the source claims this new age basically died a quick and pitiless death, a squirming victim sacrificed on the altar of female greed. That's the language it uses. It argues that what emerged instead was a, quote, renegade self-serving feminism, fueled, it says, by anger and avarice, and which, according to the book, sanctioned women to be even more selfish and demanding of men.
So if I'm getting this right, the author's belief is that feminism didn't free the ordinary woman. It simply gave blunt franchise to her greed. He states that a woman's version of equal rights had turned into pay for me and pay a lot without question. I am woman, you owe me. And the book's sort of ultimate conclusion on this is, quote, feminism is a failed social movement because at its root is not a genuine desire for social change, but an insatiable and grasping avarice. Then the source kind of zooms out, expands its argument, suggesting society itself is overtly sexist, but maybe surprisingly, it frames this bias as being toward women.
Right, that's a provocative claim. How does the book actually try to back that up, this idea that society is biased toward women? Well, it gives examples, like men being cannon fodder in war, while women have a choice about military service. It also points to men being, quote, forced to initiate courtship and finance sex, and shouldering primary responsibilities for things like mortgages and college tuitions and weddings. not to mention diamond rings, it adds. What's more, the source claims the justice system is disgracefully female-friendly, citing judges who allegedly regularly give the nod to women predators who practice divorce as a business. And it suggests men are many times more likely to be sentenced to prison for the same crime.
Wow. Okay, so the book really goes all in there, claiming women have hoodwinked male sexuality and are the true oppressors, not the oppressed.
Yeah.
It even suggests the feminist movement's logo should be not a female gender symbol, but a leather-clad dominatrix raising a bloody whip.
Yeah. And what's also fascinating here is how the book interprets workplace dynamics. It asserts that women gain high-paying positions through affirmative action policies simply because of their gender, and then use sexual tools in the office only to, quote, scream sexual harassment when the time has come to pay the piper. The source just dismisses the glass ceiling outright as a mythical barrier, and instead points to what it calls the glass basement of manual labor, asserting that men die earlier, partly due to stress from work imposed by, well, women's demands, according to this view.
Okay, let's turn our attention now to how the source describes female behavior specifically in dating and marriage. It paints a picture of romance itself as basically a sham, describing it as a, quote, plot hatched by unprincipled women to curl their manicured talons around male credit cards.
Yeah, and a key concept the book introduces for the dating phase is what it calls the probe. This is described as this seemingly, innocuous-sounding list of questions like, what do you do? Where do you live? What kind of car do you drive? Standard questions, maybe. But the book claims these are specifically designed to calculate a man's earning power. And it asserts that if a man doesn't seem to have sufficient assets, a woman will just, quote, immediately excuse herself.
And what if a man seems wary of, gold diggers? Well, the source claims women then use a tell him what he wants to hear con. Pretending they never cared about money in the first place.
Right. The source takes a really strong stance here, arguing women deny what it calls their whoredom through self-deceit and hypocrisy. It claims women will swear she has no interest in money, yet she callously rejects anyone with an unimpressive salary. Unless, it adds, she thinks she can goad him into a more lucrative career. And the book posits that by accepting, say, an expensive meal instead of direct cash, women are able to sugarcoat the transaction with romance, which perpetuates this nice girl fantasy as the book sees it.
Okay, moving on to marriage then. The book claims it's basically a business arrangement, an impersonal profit center for women. It even states that women cut off sex almost immediately after the wedding, because according to the author, she has achieved her goals.
Wow. And the source posits that women are, quote, relentlessly shallow, caring only about immediate benefit and money. And fundamentally, that love is money. That's a direct quote. It suggests this obsession women supposedly have with appearance is because this is what she is marketing to men. And her entire concept of self-worth is determined by the price she can command for the use of her vagina. I mean, that's certainly an extreme interpretation of self-worth presented there.
Definitely extreme. Another key claim the book makes is that women are whores because men live at the mercy of their sex drives. The author asserts that male testosterone, quote, surges through a man's bloodstream like liquid fire, consuming him with lust, and that women exploit this through what it terms pussy power, which is described as an alleged vile unwritten contract between the genders, or simply sexual blackmail.
The book also dives into that, commonly asked question or maybe stereotype, why does the source claim chicks dig jerks? It suggests, quite bluntly, that the more he abuses women, the more successful he will be in attracting them. And the nicer he is, the more likely he will wind up as a friend. The book argues women equate abusive behavior with earning power and are attracted to bad boys as a kind of challenge, experiencing unfettered humanity and expressing their sexuality as nature intended, but only for a brief period, it suggests.
Okay, so if we follow the book's logic here, what does this all mean for how women approach sex itself? The source says women insist that men pay for it and don't actually want sex for pleasure. Yeah, instead they supposedly clamor for romance, which again the book calls a sham and a plague which poisons the souls of men. It also makes the very strong claim that pornography exists because women are withholding sex and selling their bodies to the highest bidder, and most men can't afford them. That's right. Right, and the book includes these direct quotes from what it calls man-on-the-street interviews, which are meant to give us, raw, unfiltered perspectives from its alleged research. For example, one overheard conversation claims, when my girlfriends and I go out at night, we never take any money with us. All we have to do is smile at some geek and you'll buy us drinks and dinner.
And another quote highlights the book's view on the male experience. If a man wants to get laid, he has to jump through hoops, and then maybe she'll sleep with him. And after you've spent all that time and money and mental bullshit just to get her into bed, she wants to cuddle. How much of this can we take? It really emphasizes a sense of frustration from the male perspective presented in the source.
Yeah, definitely. And a particularly blunt one from the source. Sex should be like the salad bar at a restaurant. You pay once and come back as many times as you want. And that sentiment, that love is a 5-letter word, M-O-N-E-Y, is also strongly present in these man-on-the-street bits.
The source also includes this anecdote where a man supposedly asks women at a restaurant to pay for dinner. And when they get all pissed off, he concludes, "I realize women are just takers." Another one just states, "The sex you get for free usually costs more." These really paint that picture of the perceived transactional nature of relationships that the book is pushing.
Okay, so given all these claims, the book offers a very, very direct call to action for men. It titles a chapter, "What Men Can Do," and states, pretty unequivocally, the only way to reclaim your manhood and to vanquish female oppression forever is to stop paying for pussy now.
Right. And then the book provides this detailed male to-do list, specific instructions. It advises men to immediately stop buying women drinks and picking up the check, and to insist that your partner pay her fair share, even if sex is assured, adding, "This is true equal rights." The author suggests men will initially be denied sex, sure, but that this will eventually force women to act like normal human beings and realize they need men as much as men need them.
And other points on this male to-do list include things like, don't fall victim to female romance games, stand up and be a man, refuse to be politically correct, and stop cowering at trumped-up charges of sexual harassment. Fight back. It's quite prescriptive.
Very. It also encourages men to start thinking of yourself for a change, to make it a priority not to buy any product advertised with an anti-male bias, and to beware of the psychologically damaged women, specifically naming those who want to be friends first or are, quote, professional virgins.
Interesting. The book also claims that Esther Villar, from earlier, that she was wrong when she predicted women wouldn't change. Fitzgerald, the author here, states that a smarter, more independent generation of men would be born who would grow disgusted with the mercenary hypocrisy of the female way of life and would refuse to be held up for sex.
Exactly. And the source concludes by predicting a backlash, which it actually describes as more like a revolution, where men will finally be free of the shackles of female domination. In this scenario, women are positioned as the losers, forced to pay for their own dinners and having to offer sex gladly without compensation. This outcome, the author suggests, will ultimately lead to genuine intimacy and the possibility for true love. Quite the prediction.
Yeah, quite the vision. So to really round out our understanding of the book's perspective, it offers this lexicon, basically a list of what women say versus what the author claims they really mean. It's quite revealing.
Okay. Like what? Give us an example. For instance, according to this lexicon, when a woman says, "I want a man who's a good provider," she apparently really means, "I want to be spared from the necessity of having to work for a living and to have a lifestyle I can't afford on my own."
Right. And two other statements. "I like you as a friend," and "I never sleep with a man on the first date." According to the book, both allegedly really mean, "Your income isn't large enough for me to waste my time gating you."
Wow. The lexicon also redefines politically correct simply as bussy whipped. And "you're a gentleman" is translated as "he's a truly brainwashed sucker who will pay for everything and won't ask for sex." It certainly offers a very specific reinterpretation of common phrases, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. So we've certainly taken a deep dive into some very strong, very controversial perspectives today, particularly on the dynamics between men and women as they're presented in Sex-ploitation. How women use their bodies to extort money from men. I mean, this material definitely challenges a lot of conventional ideas about relationships and gender roles.
Indeed, it really does. This exploration of Fitzgerald's work, it forces you to think about, well, traditional economic models within relationships, maybe, and the evolution of social movements. It offers one, let's say, extreme perspective, urging us to consider the very different ways human interactions and societal structures can be interpreted. And again, the goal here is just to be well-informed about these diverse perspectives, however challenging, however uncomfortable they might make us feel.
Absolutely. So what does this all mean for how we perceive things like personal responsibility, agency within relationships, especially, in a world that's constantly grappling with evolving gender dynamics and the economic realities? This deep dive into a very, very particular viewpoint certainly gives you something to mull over.